you can do that like this, or push the button that says raised hand if you select that down. Let's see, that's that under participant is where they do that, or is it under
Yes.
reactions?
I think under participants.
Okay.
And John, let me know when you'd like me to start recording.
Yeah, I'm getting ready right now. So we will follow our agenda, and we will have opportunity for, I'll make sure everyone has an opportunity to speak. If you don't raise your hand, I may call on you. And at that point, wait until the
We started.
Melanie, John is muted.
Got it? Okay. All right, so we will begin the meeting. So if you would start the recording, and if the public, another person of the public comes, adds in, they'll just add in at that point in time.
Okay.
We don't have video pictures on Kathleen, Cindy, and Peggy. Is that intentional?
We might have them turned off. And Melanie, you're going to have to hit the record button because I don't have permission. Okay.
Okay. All right, so let's start the meeting. I'd like to call to order the Board of Trustees meeting of the Estes Valley Public Library District on this April 20th at 6:35 p.m. We did not receive, as we invited, any public comment to be posted by email or call in. And so we will move to our consent agenda. Hopefully everyone's had a chance. Did someone say something? Okay. We'll move to the consent agenda. On the consent agenda, we have 4 items. The Board of Trustee meeting minutes from the February 18th, 2020 board meeting. Income and expense reports for both the end of year-to-date, end of February, and end of day year-to-date, March 31st of this year. We also have the income and expense report for the 13th month for 2019. And we have the April study session annual collections report. Could I have a motion, please, by raised hand, as who would move the consent agenda? Liz moves, thank you. And a second. Bill seconds. Does anyone have any of these items that they wish to remove from the consent agenda? I see no one indicating. Does anyone have any edits to any of the consent agenda items? No edits. Did we just lose someone? We lost Kay's video. Things seem to be moving around a little bit on.
John, for my screen, you are frozen. I'm not sure if that's true for anyone else.
I'm frozen.
No? Okay.
Can you hear me?
Okay. If everyone else is good, it's fine.
Okay. So I hear no one seeking to make any edits on the consent agenda. Please unmute everyone.
Hey, Carlos.
Melanie, can you unmute everyone, please, for just a moment for a vote?
Okay.
Okay, we have everyone unmuted, but we've lost Claudine. She's not on at all. She doesn't get a vote anyway. Can we get Kay back?
Sure.
Kay, can you say something if you're actually there?
I'm here.
Okay, I'll go, I don't see you, but your box is there.
Okay.
So we'll go ahead and take the vote. All those in favor of the consent agenda, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Passes unanimously. Thank you. We'll move to strategic discussions and reports. I've got the first one, I guess. And that is just a bit of an update on the Capcom for 2020 in September. I've met with the committee for the trustees agenda. And right now, the plan is for Friday only for trustee specific talks. So they will be at 10:30, 1:15, 2:30, and 4:30, with a break between 3:30 and 4:30, at which time they will be planning to have a gathering, probably in the display room, the vendor room, if you will, a location for trustees to get together and have some exchange and an opportunity to meet and so forth. There may be one other opportunity on that day at the beginning of the day as well, right after the keynote speaker. That hasn't been decided for sure. So right now they are hoping that they will be able to have a live conference, but of course they'll wait some time to make a final decision on that and whether they would try to do a virtual kind of conference or not. David has a, what is it, 14, 15-minute talk, David, that you submitted that will be part of 3 different presentations. Let's see, what time frame? I think it's the 2:30 time frame for that one, that talk. Anyway, that's the update. Anyone have any questions about that? Wait, raise your hand. Okay, no questions. That's it for government affairs, other than some discussions we'll have a little bit later with Claudine when we talk about the phased reopening of the library. Okay, library director, Claudine, you have a few reports.
I do. John, the first quarter strategic report from the staff was part of the packet. And I generally like to open it up for any questions. I know you always seek highlights, but after you've looked at the monthly, I'd like to start by saying Cindy Seckman's financial summary from March, which, because we didn't have the March meeting, I hope you had a chance to look at the level of detail she was able to provide. Pretty exceptional, I thought. And I'm going to skip. So the staff strategic reports for the first quarter, as you know, has a long narrative, and based on advice or suggestions we got from Diana, our program supervisor, we essentially really focus on what was the goal, what were our statistics, and what were the stories. So the format remains. I'm going to kind of leap down to the bottom, which is the actual spreadsheet of our deliverables. It's a lot of pages, hold on. And I hope you see that even just the little bit of time that we were closed in March has had a tremendous impact on our statistical assessment. Some things are incredibly high and some things are incredibly low, but I'm happy to answer any questions. It looks to me like quite a number of things, such as our ELL, perhaps is of significance. We have a decrease in participants, but I would say by and large, there shouldn't be any surprises on the page other than what our quarantine time has done. So are there any questions I can answer about the narrative or the quarterly dashboard?
Please raise your hand if you'd like to ask. Okay, Bill, you're live. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was just staggered by the amount of effort and creativity that's been going on at the library since the whole quarantine started. It's just amazing. I know Mark and Allison got special mention, but the whole thing, all the adaptation with IT and trying to make the library accessible for our patrons, I just think it's a wonderful success story. And that's all I want to say.
Thank you.
Thank you, Bill. Nice, Beth.
Unmute Beth, please. Melanie? Melanie, I've lost you. Oop. You unmuted her and muted her again. Please there you go. Okay, Beth, you're ready.
I was just agreeing with Bill, and I can't imagine what it's taken to do all that has had to be done to be relevant and to be just as creative as you all have been. So just some appreciation and agreement.
Okay,
Thank you, Beth.
It's difficult to hear you, Beth. I don't know if you can do anything on your volume from the speaking end. Maybe get a little closer to it when you're speaking, okay? Okay. Anyone else have any comments, questions on the dashboard and the quarterly report? I don't see anyone. Okay, I'm still not seeing your video.
Do you want me to log off and log back in?
You shouldn't have to. Just be sure to hit the wave the hand over on the
Right.
participants if you want to talk that way.
Okay.
We'll see if Melanie or anyone can get you logged back in. You may, down at the bottom left, see if your video feed is on.
It says it's on.
Okay, all right.
But do you see my hand?
Mm-mm.
No,
Oh,
no.
My hand's
yes,
raised.
I do see the hand now.
okay.
You want to say something?
I do. I'm just hearing lots of good things about us using our 3D printer to help on doing the mask. And my question is there a lot of cost to the library in the materials?
Kay, I actually don't know the answer to that. I believe what's happened is we used our existing supply. Allison threw in her own personal supply, and you might be aware that we've had members of the public offer to purchase additional material. So that's a cost that it would be really fun for me to get back to you on what that was. My guess is the highest cost, Kay, is the electricity at Allison's house for the 24/7 running of 2 3D printers. But I will get the facts from Allison and Mark and get back to you.
Well, I mean, one of the things we could do is just, because it's such a wonderful thing, we could take some donations. I think that would, I mean, as everyone else has said, the library is one of the great stories in this whole thing. And I would think that we get a lot of support for it.
Thanks, Kay. I will mention that Curtis is already working on ways to coordinate with other entities in town who are doing different mask, I don't know what you call them, gathering masks made at home from folks so that they can distribute in the community. And so we're looking at ways that we can say, if you'd like to make a donation. So I don't know when Curtis, and you don't have to answer Curtis, but maybe this week or next, we'll have that out. So thank you very much, Kay.
Yeah, and everyone realizes what's being made with the 3D printer is the actual shield. So it's the frame for the shield, and then the Northern Colorado group is putting the plastic shield itself within that frame that we've made. They're not these cloth masks that everybody else is making. Anyone else? I have one item on the dashboard, the book of librarian.
Yep.
In the notes, it says you added the AARP stats for 2020.
Yes.
That's not really a library program, so I'm not sure why we would add those.
John,
They use the library, and I know that the library has helped with booking their folks that come in.
Mhm.
But other than that, that's really, we don't spend any money on it or anything else, do we?
Well, here's what we've done. The state library actually is experiencing a whole lot of creative development from libraries of ideas and programs and partnerships that don't comport with existing outreach and programs. So we actually asked the state how they would like us to book our AARP appointments. And John, though it is an AARP program, I would point out we dedicate space to it and we dedicate staff time to it. And so it's a way to capture, there are resources and effort that goes into this partnership, which has gone on how many years? 10, Curtis?
Long time, yeah.
So you can, I understand it's not a program, you know, and the way in which we submit it to the state, the closest they could get is it is technically a one-on-one appointment with a volunteer that was made possible through the library. If it appears like a statistical grab, we can we can work on that, but just know we did kind of vet it through the state to see if that's how other libraries were counting that as well.
Okay, I guess for this year, I would suggest that we might want to just keep it as a separate line for that particular thing, but
So it doesn't inflate our appointments?
yeah. So
Okay.
so that we have a better feel for what actual library staff appointments are.
That won't be hard to do. Thanks, John. We can do that. And Joanna, I think, is still online, so taking notes. So we've got that captured. Thank you.
Okay, very good.
John, before we move on, I just wanted to say to all of you, thank you. The support you give to the staff is pretty awesome. And the staff feels it and knows it, but there are more than usual present here today. So I'm glad that they can hear it too. And I would agree, the way in which each team broke into their own team and decided largely themselves, how are we going to do what only we can do for the public during this quarantine? And I think the results, I'm also quite impressed. So thank you very much for what you all had to say.
Great, good to hear. Kathleen has her hand raised.
Or she's applauding, it's hard to know.
Well, it looks like a raised hand. Kathleen, did you have something you wanted to share?
I'm sorry, I was just applauding, John. I didn't mean to interrupt. Thank you.
Oh, that's all right. That's all right. We have several staff, you'll note, that are listening in, and we're happy to have them. And I would welcome any key input if you have that for us. We'll move on then if we're finished with the first quarter strategic report. Okay, and Claudine's going to give us a little bit of the COVID-19 actions update beyond that.
Thanks, John. I would like to start kind of with a pinpoint of the Families First Coronavirus Response Act. You might all remember during the study session we discussed, or perhaps it was in previous communication from me, that if the library district did not fall under what the feds were going to make law, that I would ask you to pass something. Well, nothing for you to pass. It was taken care of for us. And the good news is with the admin team definitely working at 100% of, their 40 hours. Oh, and some 200%, right, Curtis? Curtis is supposed to be part-time, but he's definitely full-time right now. That we are working with Employers Council to make sure, and the town, to make sure that we are communicating the employee rights under this act, and that, and as it's not political, but it's uncomfortable, when people get sick, because it's, it's a long arc, right? Between now and December 31st, this is what we'll be doing, and we'll be doing it precisely. And so one of the important points I want to show you is you are already providing through the benefits program accrued time off for most of the staff, right? What it means is the part-time staff who do not accrue any vacation or sick leave are covered, okay? But the part I want to emphasize for you all is we do have some staff members with school-age kids. So I'm sure you've all been watching the news, but just to kind of bring it home, what it means is I'm sure I'm optimistic school will start in the fall, but should one of our staff members have a child who's sick or they get sick, understand that our library district does not pay for family leave because we're under 50 employees. However, if a staff member has a child in school and school is canceled or they're doing caretaking, it's a reminder, we're going to pay for something we haven't paid for in the past. I don't think it's monumental, but I wanted to show you were going to pass something like this anyway. So thanks, feds, for taking care of it for us. And that the outcome is the district may pay a little more than usual for people who invoke the Family Medical Leave Act. So that's probably the biggest thing to point out. And that poster was what we shared with the staff. And Employers Council, who we have under contract we're their member, it's a member organization. They help us with HR. They're very clear with us about both how to work with this act and also how to do our best and how we treat staff and set our expectations as we move into phase 2. So I'm hardly an expert, but I mostly want to let you know the administrative staff is on it. The staff has learned about it.
You froze up there.
Oh, are there any questions that I can answer in my neophyte knowledge of this or concerns you wanted to share?
Anyone? No questions? We have discussed this. I've discussed it with Claudine extensively. I did some research also looking up the U.S. Department of Labor information. It's unfortunate that in this case, the library is considered a governmental, because we're a taxing district entity, and so we cannot recoup from the IRS side, if you will, I want to say, Claudine, the deductions that.
Right. It was designed for small businesses that if they were paying staff for medical leave, right, that what they would do is not pay the IRS a certain number of tax dollars in order to recoup that cost. Well, that's true for private businesses. It's not true for small governments. Right. And we had Cindy Seckman triple check that for this moment. She affirmed. Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
Okay. And no questions still?
It's okay.
Okay.
Now, I can move on to a more generic report. Just to let you know that, and Kay, you raised this with me during the Finance Committee meeting, and you just reminded me this is a good time to share. So the library, when we talk about our phased return in, we hope, a few weeks to phase 2 services, not full services, I want to let you know that we are working with the town of Estes Park, where the intergovernmental managers have been meeting every week to every other week to make sure we understand what's happening with each agency. Then the Larimer County Library directors have been in frequent communication, and I'll talk a little bit more about that when we go into our phased approach. And then, of course, at the statewide level, there's quite a bit of connection in Colorado Public Libraries, although there isn't a lot of consistency around the state at this time around how libraries are behaving. It's kind of on a county by county or rural to urban level. But I just want to let you know that at this point, when we start discussing the phased approach, please know that pretty much everyone on every supervisor on staff and the admin team have worked with their colleagues to find out what best practices are going on that we might steal from. So it's really just a long way of saying our proposals are not unilateral. Bill, John, it looks like Bill's raising his hand.
Raising your hand, Bill?
Yeah,
Go ahead.
this is a random suggestion, Claudine, and probably of no use, but there's so much work, obviously, that's gone into that phase 2 plan. It's sort of, on a first read, it's almost bewildering. There's so much thought that's gone into it. But I'm just wondering, would it be worthwhile to have a physician review it, just in terms of the safety procedures, just to do a quick scan of, just to make sure that nothing is missed. And that's just my idea. That's enough out of me.
No, thanks, Bill. I appreciate it. Because of course, when you look at the document, I think it says pretty clearly that the first order of business is public staff and public health. So, John, I don't know if you wanted to talk about it, the phased opening now, or when you're down in action items.
We'll get into more details in the action item, I think. So
Okay.
you've shared the kind of the tactical approach you've taken. And if
Okay.
there's any questions with regard to that aspect, then we take those now. Otherwise, we'll get into more details on the document itself and have a motion that we will acknowledge what the staff has done. So we're taking some level of responsibility as a board at that point. We're not going to approve it. It's operational, and we're not going to get into that, but I think it's important that we will acknowledge that we've received it and studied it. Any other questions or comments for Claudine at this stage on the update? Okay, we'll turn to the Finance Committee report then. I asked that they give us just a little bit heads up on the final numbers on the 13th month. Hopefully everyone had a chance to look at that spreadsheet, but I thought, David, you might tell us how well, excuse me, how well things went for 2019.
Okay, am I unmuted?
Yes, you're on.
Okay. Well, yeah, we can talk about the 13th month. No big surprises. We will probably talk about it more at the May study session, some of the more details of it. But 13th month is important because the library is on a hybrid accounting system. And for most of the year, what we get are, I would term as cash basis reports. It reports more of what actually happened during the year. And at the year end, then the town before, but Cindy will be making adjustments for accrued items, mainly things like payroll and benefits that were earned in December but not paid till January. Items like that. And Cindy, please interject with any comments or corrections you have. She is currently working with the auditors, currently sees no problems, have had no indications from them that they won't get us a timely audit, but they will do the next phase of additions to the reports with things like depreciation. A minor side thing is Cindy has done a lot of research on some of the past entries for things like depreciation treatments. And in the near future, we'll have some updates on that too. And we will talk more about that in the May study session. But overall, the 13th month looked good. We had a good year. Most things were up, such as overall income up 104%. It turned out we probably did not have to amend the expense budget, but it was close enough that it was prudent to do so. Expenses ended up slightly under budget. Revenue ended up slightly over budget. So overall, a good report. I didn't have anything outstanding to point out about it. I will ask if there's any questions though.
Yeah, so we ended up well over 100,000 to the good, if you will, between additional income versus budget and reduced expenses. So that's very positive, and that 100,000 will probably get moved into our long-term reserve, right?
That would be correct as far as and I will say the 13th month report like this is best compared with like the previous year's 13th month report if you want to more compare apples to apples. rather than comparing it to, say, like a November report or something like that, because of the accrual adjustments. I really didn't have much more to say on the 13th month. If we want to move on to
Well,
the other discussion.
let's see if there's any questions. Anyone have any questions or comments about the discussion on the 13th month report?
Again, unfortunately for everyone, we will probably get more in depth into it in May.
Definitely. You'll have an update at that time using those numbers for our long term.
I hope to look at the 10-year plan and update that, but that really gets into the next issue we were going to talk about. In the Finance Committee, we had a discussion about what our responsibility would be for maybe projecting what's going to happen in the future. There's so many variables. Claudine just touched on one with the family leave. We don't know what kind of maybe defaults there may be on people paying property taxes. There certainly won't be probably as much of the specific ownership tax as was projected maybe. So there's a lot of things that are uncertain. We talked about producing maybe 3 possible scenarios. And when I say we, I mean Claudine. Coming up with 3 possible scenarios, being best case, worst case, and most likely case. And I would like some of the board's opinions on if that would be something functional for Finance Committee to pursue and Claudine to pursue, and if that format would be a good format to go with.
Okay. So Bill's asked if you have some comments. Bill, go ahead.
I happened to talk to David earlier today, and he mentioned the 3 scenarios to me, and so I had a chance to think about it. And it sounds like a lot of work for Claudine, and it sounds like it's really, really, really important and necessary to do that. So the board can really see what the terrain looks like in making decisions. That's all.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, do you have any comment here?
I actually was going to raise my hand.
Okay,
So
you're
there
on.
it is. I actually had a question for Anne. Have you had discussions with regards to the impact to the bookstore?
Yes, and I'll talk about that a little bit when it's
Okay.
my turn.
Okay,
But that is an important component that during working with the scenarios, we need to be in contact with the Friends and Foundation.
Right.
I mean, they're 9% of our budgeted income. That's a huge, huge factor. And obviously, we hope it goes well for them, but you've got a lot of things to decide on your end too, I'm sure. It will be a very fluid document as information comes in and we have more facts, but it just seemed prudent to all of us in the Finance Committee that it would be a good thing to pursue.
okay. One of the observations I guess I would make is the basic tax revenue that we received this year is based on last year. So I guess I don't write off unless the county assessor treasurer can tell us otherwise. I don't see that we're going to have a significant change in this year's income. Next year's income definitely could be more impacted. Now, the specific tax element, I agree with you that is current, I believe, and would possibly impact that number, although it's still a relatively small portion of our total income. It could be. I support the idea of doing the 3 scenarios. However, I think we have to wait until Cindy and the auditors have finished the audit and probably be later in the summer before we would expect to have that ability to bring that together. And it should include contact with the county treasurer to get their input. And of course, August is when we get their first estimates for next year. And they certainly at that point should have estimates for the remainder of this year.
John, I agree with you. Things like possible default on payments this year, while possible, I don't think is going to be huge, but we got to at least consider those possibilities. And we all agree that this is going to be a quite fluid document that won't be any time finalized soon. But it would just seem good to start the process of thinking about the logistics of it.
Agreed. Anyone else? Comments? Claudine, you have any?
Yeah, I mean, I can take what Dave suggested and go even further. The royal we, of course, applies to my staff. So thank you, David. We are aware, and I use this with the tactical team, that back when 60, 61, and 101 were on the agenda, the board tasked me, and that really meant my team, to think about what were the two, if it were to pass, how are we going to cut our services and expenses by 25% and then ratchet down over the years, and then how would we carry on with the normal budget? So it's not unreasonable. It's quite reasonable, and I'm curious myself. So I'm so glad that there's time. I think I would like to propose to the board something like a June draft that we would then fine tune after we've received information from August. Now, there's more to that when I talk about the phased approach and sort of the level of camaraderie and teamwork going on in Larimer County. But I'd like to put a timeline on this so that we can be a little bit more exact. July is fine too. I'm just saying probably not earlier than June.
I just don't want to put too much pressure given everything else that's happening on the staff with regard to this. Again, we should know through May income from collections from the county, because that's when we will have received between 80 and 90% of our tax income for the year. And if those hold up, those numbers, I think we can wait until a little bit later to do this analysis of 3 possible scenarios, certainly for this year. I think it's more impactful with regard to what we can forecast for 2021.
And perhaps, John, that's something to clarify. Not to belabor the point, we've discussed and the staff's discussed, municipal libraries are doing furloughs right now. The bigger the library, the bigger the furlough. Some of the smaller suburban libraries, municipal libraries, not so much. And they're doing immediate 2020 changes. So I just want to make sure we're on the same page. What I'm going to be doing is preparing just for the 2021 budget, not necessarily changes to 2020.
Okay.
Well, and I will add too, John, we've been talking about the income part, but we got to consider the expense part too. In scenarios like Claudine discussed about family leave in the fall with children and things like that, if there's added expenses, they're unbudgeted there.
Mm-hmm.
I agree with you. And there is one area I would say that the Finance Committee ought to discuss with Claudine and Cindy, and that is any capital expenditures this year.
Yeah, actually.
That's the staff room, unfortunately. That's the only thing we had down really for capital improvements for the year, and that's been put off several times in the past. But that might be something that we want to consider. And part of the decision there might be the availability of a contractor.
John, I'd like to raise the ante on that, because the postponement of, we'll see, for the staff room update was I think clear, and that was Mark's recommendation for some very practical reasons as well as capital reasons. But the big issue on the table right now is the integrated library system contract, which we delayed, and I really should have put down as an agenda item, but you've just helped me to remember. They are awaiting our signature to move forward this fall, and at this point, it's a gamble. Here's my recommendation to the board, Mr. President, is right now it's a gamble when we talk about the three scenarios: best case, worst case, and probable case scenario, right? That's what I would be delivering with the staff's significant assistance. But within that, the integrated library system, which we created as more of a community catalog, involves really 5 locations: the library, public library, Eagle Rock School, and then the 3 buildings at the school district. So the postponement of that, it has impact beyond us. So this is not that I'm saying, oh, we have to make sure, maybe they don't have time to implement this under these circumstances. And Beth, I hope, would you be okay if I invited you right now to express what it would be like for Eagle Rock School if we decided to go ahead or cancel this?
Unmute Beth, please. Melanie? Thank you. Go ahead.
This is really challenging because I think
Closer to the mic, please.
It's hard to
my
hear you.
mic is, my mic is here, so
Good.
I can't get closer. I can talk louder though. You know, we're looking at budget cuts all the way across everything. We're funded by Honda. Honda is not making cars. You know, so I'm just thinking of the associated costs, as well as if we're back on campus with our staff. So we won't be able to be in the building until we can be in the building. So if that coincides with your schedule, then that's great. If it doesn't, it doesn't. So I'm thinking of all these factors. I'm not sure what my recommendation is because things are changing so quickly, but there are consequences for us moving ahead with that, both financial and potentially coordinating.
Thank you. That's good to know. Okay. Anything else on that?
Yeah, John, I think that we're going to need to take it offline with Ann Dewey, who has been our contact at the school district, and see what it would be in the school district's best interest. It may help us. The staff at the library is ready. It's a better product. It's a good long-term decision. The question is this the right time to go forward with that better product long-term decision? So I will come back to the board with a clear recommendation because this is budgeted for 2020. You did, you know, it's approved. Circumstances have changed. And I'd like to get back. It looks like Kay has raised her hand, John.
Okay, Kay?
Yeah, a question for you, Claudine, is could you implement it and wait for Eagle Rock and the school districts to do it when it's better for them?
The answer is yes. And the immediate consequence, Kay, which could be a positive in terms of a public service, but a negative to the finance committee, is we would then incur the full cost of the migration, which we were cleverly spreading to our partners. It was win-win-win, but you know, there's a third win, which is us sharing the cost. So there is a full cost impact of that. So that is an option.
Okay.
So
Thank you.
we'll let the finance committee discuss that further with you as far as what kind of cost differential and wait for more input from Eagle Rock and the school district. And
Thank you, John. I want to let you know that Mark and I wanted to let the board know that Mark and Jamie have already got all those financials ready. So we can share those as soon as the finance committee would like. And John, did I hear you? I'm sorry, I can't hear that right now. Did you say to have this for the May meeting?
No, just when you can have it, but I think that you and the finance committee need to have that discussion when you have those numbers and further information from the other participants.
Yes, will do.
Okay. All right.
Thank you.
Anything else on this topic? Well, basically around the 3 scenario, and Claudine has expressed her willingness to work with staff and work on those. And we probably, I would suspect we wouldn't actually see anything since we don't have a July board meeting scheduled until our August, maybe even the study session at that time. Okay.
If that pleases the board, you bet.
We can have further discussion on that at any time. So if you haven't had a chance to express yourselves tonight, you can send a note to myself and Claudine with regard to that. Okay, if I don't see anyone else raising hands or wanting to speak, we'll move to Ann Finley and Friends and Foundation update.
Okay. Well, as you know, the Cliffhanger's closed, but we were rather surprised that we did fairly well in March, right before the closure. And so that was a plus. And we're also quite confident that the sales that we will make up with online in a strong summer. So we're not particularly worried yet with the Cliffhanger. It's also a very good time for us to sort of get some of our processes more in line and work on some of the things that are kind of hard to do when there's, customers. So it's been actually kind of a nice pause for the Cliffhanger. And just to remind people, it didn't open last year till the 23rd, and we were able to make our goal even in that short of time. So we're feeling okay about that. And we're going to open following the phasing protocol of the library. So that's, we're in step with whatever the library decides to do, then that's what we will do. And we'll also maintain all the safety precautions that are put in place by the library. In terms of the apartments, we had one tenant who wanted to defer, but she didn't. And so everyone paid their payments. It's there for her if she needs it, but so far the tenants have paid their April rent, all three, so we're okay with the apartments. Naturally, the April 23rd and the duck race, all those sort of membership drive products that we rely on are not there. So we're grateful for any donations at any time. The foundation has taken a pause for April. In terms of approaching people for donations, we feel like it's not appropriate right now. And so instead, we're doing sort of an outreach, talking to major donors, because a lot of them live alone. So we're kind of doing that nurturing of donors rather than asking for money at this point. That feels more comfortable to the board. We've canceled our April 27th board meeting. We only had one significant vote we needed to take, and per bylaws, we're allowed to do this by email, and it's having we voted a new member in. Her name is Barbara Coles, and she is unanimously was voted onto the board a couple days ago. Let's see, we will give an update in June per the MOU of any unanticipated developments and funding requirements. So we'll come back to you at that point for that. So any questions? Did that answer your question, Kay?
It did.
Okay, good.
Anyone have any other questions, comments for Ann? Appreciate the detailed update on that, and the fact that Cliffhanger will follow the library's lead. That's great to hear. Okay. I don't see anyone wishing to say anything further. So thank you. And we will move to our one action item. I would like, please, a motion of acknowledgement of receipt of the phase 2 reopening of the library. Who would move? Bill moves, and Beth seconds. Thank you. We'll have then opportunity for Claudine to go through some high-level elements of what she sent out. And if you have not had a chance to read it in detail, hopefully you pull it up and you can ask questions after she's given us the high-level review. Claudine.
Thanks, John. The first item I wanted to bring to your attention is the priorities, and just to assure you, we haven't lost sight of. I have to pull up what I received from the governor's office which was we're moving from stay at home to safer at home. And that happened earlier today. So some of you may have had a chance to see it. I just looked at a nice summary. But it looks very much we're in compliance with what's happening at the state level. So if you saw or read as I did, now it's up to the county to decide whether they're going to lift the local orders. So you see that our priorities are very much the safety of all human beings, making sure that we're actually offering, when we do launch services, something of actual use. We're not doing it to keep busy, we're doing it to make the community a better place. So your comments on that are welcome. Wanted to assure you, we are aligning with the town of Estes Park. It does have incident command. You've seen Travis, he's working quadruple time at his level, but Captain Eric Rose is managing incident command and has been a very helpful resource for the library. But they don't expect anything from us, is what I wanted to say. That's very easy. It comes down to Larimer County Health. And here's what I wanted to share with you behind the scenes a little bit. Not like there's a curtain. Sorry, I don't mean it to make it sound like that. But the Larimer County directors have been meeting by Skype a little bit. And kind of our objective is what we're calling relative consistency. So I touched on that earlier. And the manner in which we're quarantining our books, the fact that we all want to offer curbside service, that we're going to open around the same time, and that our messaging will be that Larimer County libraries are in compliance with Larimer County Health, and that we're not making a move that isn't approved. So Bill, in response to your question about having a physician review it, good news, and let me know if this satisfies the board, I hope it does. Loveland Public Library, because their municipality has an incident command at the municipal level, and that person is working with Larimer County Health. So we've been sending our health questions, trying to say, hey, Larimer County, we want to save you time. So all library questions are going through the Loveland Library to Larimer County Health so that they can answer us cooperatively. Yay, right? Yay, teamwork. And then while we were at it, I'm not sure if he'll be able to do it, but the director from Fort Collins is the one we hope is asking all of the tax questions. There are multiple library districts in the county, and it'd be great if the either the treasurer or the tax assessor could answer us all at once. So that's Fort Collins. And then in our group is also Weld County, which is High Plains Library District, because Larimer County does a really great job thinking regionally, not just countywide. So what appears to be part of our future, not phase 2, if you saw from the study session, it's phase 4, is economic recovery. And that how can the library work with Larimer County Workforce Center, Larimer County Economic Development Center, to make sure that we're positioned appropriately, all the libraries. So I say that to you so that you know they're not just words about me feeling good with my peers, but that we're actually trying to accomplish efficiencies thoughtfully together. Okay, so back to phase 2 the workflow plan is the tactical team, the staff is in agreement that if Larimer County lifts the order on the 27th of April, that we can be ready by Monday, May 4th. Okay. I believe that's correct. Let me double check the calendar. Yeah, Monday, May 4th. Now it will be, phases within the phase, but I'd like to point out that, let me see, look at my notes here. So we've got that. You'll see that the basic service plan, so everything you need to see is really on page 1, okay? The other 6 pages are detail, but there are a few points I think I left out that I'd like to highlight. So under the page 1 basic service plan, patron services will be accepting book returns and offering curbside pickup. We think that at this point, the science seems to be about 3 days is enough to quarantine. Time is what kills the fomites on these books and DVDs and so on, but we'll double that just to demonstrate to the community that we're being extremely cautious. The tech facility team, hold on, not my dog, just
No,
it's a rare.
Melanie, you need to mute David and Bill, Beth, Kay, for the
It's my
moment.
puppy, so mute me.
Thanks, Dave.
Go ahead.
Did he raise his hand?
What I wanted to let you know is the tech services team, which is our technology and facility, all back of the house operations. The main point is I want to come back to the public computers because I already received really good criticism on that, but that what Mark and his team are doing is securing cleaning supplies, because what I really want you to know is we cannot open if we only have a month's worth of cleaning supplies. So Mark will be reporting back on Thursday. I'll try not to use hyperbole when I say, I don't know, I think we're reaching out to 6 or 7 providers right now to get the supplies we need to operate healthfully. So understand that May 4th, it just depends if we're resupplied or not. And we'll tell the public that as well. If we don't have Clorox wipes and masks and Purell or enough gloves to throw away boxes and boxes, we won't be opening. And that is my recommend. That is the direction I'd like to go. Finally, the program team. I mean, when I hear what the compliments you guys have, it has just been a delight to see what the program team has come up with. And I hope you've had a chance to see some of their work. You'll notice in their detail, they're just transitioning to doing better quality, broadcasting. The content will still be as good. It'll just be shinier because we'll be doing it in the building with better equipment. And then the admin team will continue to work largely from home. So the main points that I failed to mention in this report, John asked me offline, well, what's the maximum number of people in the building? We think on average there will be no more than 5 people in the building. Mind you, I think we're by law, if I think about our capacity, about 100 people can fit in the building, on a normal day. So our social distancing will be very much in place. Opening workforce. So John, I would like to open the door to any questions, and we can start with yours.
My comments about the computers,
Yes, sir.
and I don't know if you want to unmute and let Mark make any responses here. I'll leave that up to you, Claudine. Additional, but my concern, and I thought might be some other board members' concern with regard to the plan, is immediately starting to allow patrons to come into the building to use computers. Well, they're limiting the number of computers, and the plan would be that they would be in the atrium, the way I read this, and keep them well apart and follow lots of good procedures. But my perspective would be that we hold off a couple of weeks after the initial opening and see how other aspects of the reopening progresses. So that's just, it's not a command by any means, but it's my thinking as far as maybe a better process to assure that all the other aspects are proceeding well before we start having patrons actually come into the library. Any comments from anyone else? Bill?
Oh,
Well, I
and
had to
Kay,
say-
Go ahead.
sorry,
Bill.
Bill. Kay had her hand raised for quite some time.
Oh, I'm sorry. Excuse me, I didn't.
Kay first.
We'll let Kay speak first. Kay, go ahead.
Okay, thank you. It's actually with regards to the computers, and I think in the document when I was scanning it, a lot of it was to make it available for people to, for instance, apply for unemployment or do updates for unemployment that might not have ready access to a computer, which I think is admirable. I mean, I think there are people who really need the help. So mine was, if we're going to have computer access, is there any way that we can limit it to the Estes Valley residents only?
Well, we could limit it to library patrons and have a card, certainly. That I think would be fairly easy. And of course, the plan was by appointment. And I don't know, Claudine, do you think by specifying the type of appointment, why they want to use computers would be agreeable?
John, we talked about that at the staff level, and here's my value statement for the library is I'd rather not be the person who decides how valuable someone's computing needs are. Some people, I would just like to say, I may not know if calling someone's grandmother is the most, not calling, emailing or FaceTiming with them on a computer is as important as someone's unemployment. So personally, I think that was brought up by the staff. I said, I'd rather not be in a position where we're asking, why do you need this computer? And then being the person who says, okay, you're allowed to use it. And then they're not using it. I just think it sets us up for unnecessary conflict. I would prefer my recommendation to the board. John, I agree with you. And I know, John, I just texted Mark to see if he wanted to speak or chatted rather. Is I really like the idea of a delay, even for a week, John, if not two, to ask the community quite directly, hey, you know, who, sorry, that's my dog now, my turn.
Mark gave us a thumbs up on that comment also.
Okay, of the delay. Thanks, everybody. Sorry about the dog. She's gonna go get that mailman by gum. So Kay, your point is well taken. I think that the first thing I'd like to find out, because I told John this, there are libraries who have done curbside service. Crickets, nobody came. Other libraries did curbside service. They had to expand the number of hours. So we'll have to see. And I feel the same way about our computers, which is let's ask. And then I think we can make decisions that may involve, okay, your point of, do we start with residents? What do we start with library card holders? Let's see what the demand is.
Okay.
Thanks.
I just don't see it makes any sense to put anybody at risk by what I consider outsiders.
Right. I agree with that. I think we would want to at least require, you know, the library card. Do we usually do that for computer use?
No, we don't use it for computer use because during the summer we have so many visitors. We simply let them on because of boarding passes and photo downloads. But let me work through, Kay and John, how the staff would do that in a way. I would say, why would there be anyone here who wasn't stay at home? Like, I just think it's an interesting question.
Oh, we've had a lot of people coming up from the valley, especially on weekends.
Yeah, we've been hiking and I can't believe where these people are coming from.
Walking around the lake, people, there's a lot of people from out of town that are coming into Escastil, unfortunately. I guess the other suggestion I would have is when we send information out to the public about reopening and then the use, when and if, how we gonna do the computer use, perhaps it would be just a way to say, these are the priorities that we see. And then let the individuals, they have to make the decision themselves, whether, you know, they're following our priorities or not. But we could probably put it out there that we were making them available for certain kinds of use to start with.
John, I hate to sound obsequious, but I agree with that. It's sort of the way Amazon says, we're going to slow down your order because, Claudine, you're ordering like an owl reflector to stop the birds. You can wait a week or two for that. And I think, yeah, I can wait a week or two. And it lets people feel like they're contributing too by saying, I can self-sort. Thanks. Right. I'm sorry, Beth, I saw you raised your hand, John.
Yeah, Beth.
Don't forget Bill.
Oh, Bill.
Oh, no, I'm sorry. Bill was next. He's waiting patiently. Bill first. Go ahead, Bill.
I just have a really silly point. You need to get the word out about the computer availability. I presume the people who come in to use the library computers don't already have internet connection. So how will they learn? A big sign, I guess, in front of the library or something. The other one is a more broader question, and I'm sure you've beaten this to death already, but it seems like we're all making risk benefit decisions all the time. And there's going to be a staff member, or more than one, who's responsible for interacting with the public inside of a building. And there's got to be some level of exposure to them, no matter how careful we are with wipes, et cetera, et cetera. So what's the risk benefit there? That's all.
Yeah.
Don't answer that. It's just.
But I just want to say, Bill, sorry, I tried to skip you.
It's a good point, Bill. Yeah, my thinking on notifying the public was articles in the newspaper. People that don't have computers already, I agree with you that they're not going to be able to see it from our blasts that we send out that way, but certainly would have the opportunity to see it in the newspaper articles.
And there are other ways, John, which Curtis can work with Allison on signage around the building. People do call, by the way, remember that's a big function of what we're doing is answering the phone. So the staff will allow us to address that concern. Thank you.
Beth, you had some comments.
Yes, I think, yeah, this is a really challenging decision to make. So I appreciate all the conversation about different things. I would just advise that we don't get into policing what is appropriate and what isn't appropriate use. And I like what you said, John, about let's suggest like this is what it's open for, but not get into the business of judging what people are doing or not doing, because we don't know if that FaceTime call is the most important thing that they are doing to get in touch with a loved one, or, you know, checking social media. So it just gets really sticky when we try to decide what's important to do and what's not important to do. So I love the idea of some guidance, but not putting our staff in the place of having to tell someone that they can't do the thing that they're doing. So that's all I wanted to reiterate.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Anyone else have any comments on this topic? Liz, David? Ann? Okay. All right, so we're going to leave this with Claudine and staff to make final decisions. Mark's been listening in, I believe, and Peggy and Kathleen and Cindy and Curtis. And so we'll leave that to staff to finalize the approach for phase 2 as they try to follow the guidance of the county and the other libraries and the health department and all of those things. So I would like to hear if everyone can be unmuted, please. Melanie, if you can unmute all the trustees. David needs to be unmuted. Okay, I think we have everyone. I'd appreciate a vote of acknowledgement for this plan and its advancement. Everyone, please say aye that approves.
Aye.
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 Anyone opposed to it? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Anyone have any other new business that we have not addressed at this point? Wave your hand, speak up. No? Okay. We went a little bit more than an hour tonight, but some good discussion, hopefully, for everyone, and helping the staff as they move forward. Upcoming trustee meetings, we will have Zoom until further notice. The study session is scheduled for May the 7th at 6:30, and it will be primarily around first David's presentation that he's prepared for CalCon on audit, financial statements and board responsibility. And then some further perhaps discussion, if we have that opportunity, with regard to where we stand financially and so forth. Right, David?
That's the plan.
Okay. The regular board meeting is scheduled for Monday, May 18th at 6:30 PM. I put down question mark the Wasson Room. It will probably be another Zoom meeting, but we'll see how things progress, okay? So it is now, by my watch, 7:44 PM. And I will adjourn the meeting with no exceptions. Thank you all for participating and stay healthy and well.
Thank you, John. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, John.
Bye.
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 Good to
Hey,
see you all.
Melanie, Joanna, thanks for hosting.
Yes.
Thanks for everyone without their video on. Their faces.
Okay, Joanna, are we good?
Good.
Good? Okay.
Yep, I think we're good. We've done the recording. We stopped the recording. I think it's all good.
Very good.
John, good job. Good job, boss.
Well, and you too, everyone. I appreciate the efforts that Melanie and Joanna put in. Melanie, you're still muted, but thank you very much. I hope
You're
I didn't
welcome.
bother you too much with asking for people on and off.
No, that is exactly the work we needed, is to communicate. So that was terrific.
Okay, thanks, guys.
Bye.
And
Thanks, John.
have a good rest of
Bye.
the week.
You too. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Melanie, Joanna,
Bye.
very appreciative. Thank you so much.
Mhm.